what's the most common advice that you give to people even interested in a polygynous relationship?
Is believe people when they show you who they are. We're seeing patterns. Like you have to be really clear and intentional and conscious of what you're getting yourself into. You're getting yourself into a man who has a relationship and a family with another woman. And so you, not only you, but all parties involved need to be really secure and confident in your own self before you choose to step into a partnership with multiple partners. And because the men have a certain responsibility, but as a woman, you're choosing to go into this.
Finished a war. I think it was the battle of Uhud that the Prophet had just finished. And it left a lot of Muslim families without their fathers. And so the Quran says, if you are weary about taking care of the orphans, marry 2, 3, or 4 women. However, if you won't be able to be just between the women, then marry only one.
There's a prayer called istikhara prayer, which is the guidance prayer. Direct us what is best for us and take away what is not good for us. If you're having an intuition, trust it.
It's time for So Chill Socials. Assalamu alaikum, chill family. It's your girl Kalima. It's time for So Chill Socials. I am here joined with Sister Rayesa and Sister Angelica. Sister Rayesa is known as the divorced muslimah coach. And if you guys clicked on this, you already know that this is So Chill Socials. It is a follow-up to an advice post that we got from Sister Angelica, asking some advice about her own situation, possibly going into a polygynous marriage. And I'm sure you guys are wondering, okay, it's great to, speak about marriages in all different ways, but why would we need a coach, let alone a divorce coach, for this episode specifically? I thought that at the end of the day, it's better to have someone who understands the background, or at least a professional perspective of marriage in general. I myself is not married. Sister Angelica is not married. We have Mehdi coming in a second. He's actually not married as well. And I'm sure as a marriage, even divorce coach, you've seen and heard several different scenarios that maybe you could help us along the way. Tell us a little bit about your background, and have you even worked with polygynous marriages at all, or even sisters interested in polygyny or brothers?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for having me here.
Of course.
Like you said, I am the divorced Muslimah coach, and I support women who are struggling with the breakdown in their marriage, and they are either thinking about divorce, going through a divorce, or have been through a divorce. And so what I do is I help them to gain clarity, confidence, and tawakkul in whatever path they choose going forward. And once they're in that space of being connected to themselves and Allah, then their path becomes a lot more clearer, and then they can take the steps and move forward in what they want. And usually with the breakdown of a marriage, you're having a simultaneous breakdown of yourself, and the breakup is just the surface wound. So through my work, I also help women to heal all of their original wounds, where they stem from, in terms of getting to the source of the wound and healing those traumas that they've been carrying for a lifetime that come into our relationships, and allow them to become the best version of themselves for their next chapter, whatever that looks like.
Wow.
And doing so, the goal, the purpose is to have healthy women who can pass on healthy dynamics to their children and have a thriving ummah again, inshallah.
You just naturally have such a great way of communicating, which I think that in a coach of any sort, but especially a marriage coach, we need that. We need someone that we feel very comfortable, inshallah, speaking to, someone who is understanding of our religion, our lifestyle, modern day being virtual, especially when you're in a virtual era and you're not necessarily getting to coach people one-on-one in person, which was our old normal. A lot of people may need this new normal, and to have that sort of comfort, I think subhanAllah is such a beautiful thing. By the way, guys, she prefers to remain anonymous. So I think it's so beautiful to be at least brave enough to speak your truth, seek guidance. We are at least making the step and the gesture to say, you know what, I don't have all the answers. Let me outsource. And so her first way of trying to outsource was reaching out to NiKAH and Chill. She said, I'm a new Muslim. She sent me a DM and she asked me to screenshot the DM, post it, get some feedback from the Ummah within our following. And it said, I'm a new Muslimah. I took my Shahada last week. A brother asked me to be his second wife. After a lot of convincing, I finally accepted because he seems like my match, but his first wife has started to harass me. I'm not planning on calling off the NiKAH. Any advice? She also thinks I'm some Harlow, which is a fictional character a lot of you guys may know, that wants her husband for money, but I make more money. It's just that I haven't told anyone. And she did sort of follow up and explain a little bit more backstory. She was saying, what I don't understand is why, the sister hates me so much. She married him as a second wife, but he divorced the first wife because she wanted to take up an opportunity abroad, and the long distance never worked out. He told her before they married that he was planning on getting a second wife. She contacted me on Instagram to harass me. She said I came to destroy her life. And why did I decide to meet her husband? But he proposed to me several times. I am not the one chasing him. She wants to be 100% accountable for her husband's choices. He said to just ignore everyone because I'll be living in a separate home. But this has made my once pleasant Muslim journey uncomfortable. He's addressed her to not contact me again, but I decided to block her after she tried to call me a prostitute. Which is obviously not Islamic. That's very rude. I was trying to be as nice as possible, but she was just dragging me. I even gave her my number so we could talk, and she continued to disrespect me, so I blocked her. I told him last night, this was a while ago, I told him last night, he said, we will both be living separately, so I should just keep my distance and she'll do the same. He also told me to stop trying to be friends with everyone. I was reconsidering, but he pleaded with me not to end things. Other than wanting to marry me, he has good intentions for me. He's been looking out for me and teaching me since we met. He has great intuition too. He always knows when someone is fake or isn't a good person. He's like a vibe detector. While I, on the other hand, tried to see friends with everyone. I don't have his abilities. So it seems like she has a very strong relationship with her husband. She loves him as a leader of maybe a future family. A lot of people had mixed responses to this because, of course, we want the ideal situation to be, if you're coming in as a second wife, to have the first wife appreciate you or at least respect you. And then, of course, this is a new Muslim sister who wants to complete half her deen. What a beautiful thing. But a lot of people were saying, stay away, run, don't settle for a second wife. You can find someone else easily, call it off. There's plenty of fish in the sea. People were saying, just seek out counseling, maybe ask her to go to counseling. Scholars advise against having multiple wives, someone said, because it can cause trouble like this. And also, Sister Angelica, if there's anything you want to add, feel free.
Not really, because things for me have been better. I've been to the masjid, although I told him I'm never coming back to that masjid again. I'm going to somewhere else. He told me no, because he leads the prayers there. He's like, no, it would look away if his wife or wife to be doesn't want to come to the masjid.
Okay. So there's been some stressors and some tensions in that masjid where you originally, came to Islam, or where you met your husband. So you're not going back to that masjid.
But things have been smoother now. I just keep my distance from her. She's on the left, I go to the right.
Okay. May I ask, are you married? Like, did you have your nikah, and are you married?
Not as yet. It's supposed to be early next month.
Okay, so you have not had your nikah and he is not your husband yet.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up because I heard husband, I heard marriage, and I wanted to, there's a clear line between nikah and not having a nikah. And the clear line is there are boundaries when somebody is a non-mahram, which is somebody that you can marry. Like this man, he's a non-mahram to you until your nikah is performed. Islamically, and also depending on where you live, many masjids or imams who perform the nikah also expect or mandate you to get a civil or legal marriage as well, documenting the validity of the relationship in the state that you live in.
And just to, well, Mehdi just jumped in, by the way. He's my guest host today.
Nice to meet you. I'm Rayesa.
Nice to meet you.
We started on our conversation, and you know, Islamically, when there's a marriage, a nikah contract, you're taking an oath with God, right? So there is a big obligation here when you're creating a nikah contract and you're making an agreement. So, you know, but who enforces that, right? Yeah. Because we don't live technically in an Islamic society. And that is why, from the Islamic perspective, we also have to follow the law of the land that we live in. Mm-hmm. And that is why, like, you know, to protect the rights of everyone. And that is why Sharia is even there, is to protect everyone's rights. So nobody gets taken advantage of. So nobody does not have their rights awarded or foregone for them, right? And that happens a lot. I see that in many relationships that don't have the civil part, that the women don't get the rights that they're entitled, you know. And it's kind of like whatever obligation or promise or oath you took with God doesn't really hold up in wherever you're living. You'll have to account and answer for that on the day of judgment. Yeah. But for now here, that's why it's important to know, to have knowledge, to have information before we take steps. And that is why also having a wali is so important and is an Islamic, you know, part of the process. Even if the rest of your family is not Muslim, involving, you had mentioned, Sister Angelica, that you haven't told anybody, even involving your non-Muslim brothers or father or anybody who cares about you, who loves you, who is concerned for you, who will look out for you, is important to involve them too. And a lot of the scholars here in the United States, like Imam Sohaib Webb, he does talk about that a lot, that even your non-Muslim family should be involved when you are coming together in a marriage with a man you don't know. Especially now that you have come into this relationship with God through Islam.
I was assigned a wakil by the masjid. Asked if I could get one, so they got me a wakil who is also close friends with my husband to be. And I'm trying to remember what my dad liked him at first. I introduced him to my dad last week, and then he told my dad he's Muslim. I never told him that he was Muslim. I said, okay, how many wives do you have? And I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to take more than 2. Angelica will be the last one. And my dad just laughed. It was like an awkward laugh, and he's like, no. My mom doesn't support it either, so I'm just going to do it without them, basically.
What's the most common advice that you give to people even interested in a polygynous relationship?
Okay, number one is this has to be a very, you have to be really clear and intentional and conscious of what you're getting yourself into. You're getting yourself into a man who has a relationship and a family with another woman. And so you, not only you, but all parties involved need to be really secure and confident in your own self before you choose to step into a partnership with multiple partners. Even though you're going to have a separate marriage with this man, the man has his own responsibilities that he has to address. And one of the scholars that I love to listen to and I gain so much information from is Imam Shadid Muhammad, and he's an African American Muslim imam in the States, I think in Philadelphia, and he talks a lot about polygamous marriages, and he's so wise. And because the men have a certain responsibility, but as a woman, you're choosing to go into this. So you have to understand that what is going on. And when the other wife lashes out or says things that are rude or disrespectful or has animosity towards you, it's a reflection of what's going on for her underneath and how she's handling it. So one, you don't have to take it personally, but you have to be really secure in yourself. And one of the things about your situation, Sister Angelica, is that you're new to Islam. You're having lots of changes going on in your life right now. And you need grounding before you make all of these new decisions, and not let your feelings sweep you away in making life-altering decisions. Like, get some solid grounding in who you are, and coming to God through the religion of Islam. And I speak to so many, and I support so many women who are in your situation. Whether it's a first marriage or a second marriage, there are differences between them, but there's a lot of commonalities, such as knowing yourself, not relying on the man or the marriage or even the masjid to define your Islam for you. And that's what happens to many, many women, that their Islam gets meshed up with their relationship and their marriage and their husband. And then they start viewing Islam through that relationship and that lens. And it's very, many times sisters have been hurt because they've been in a vulnerable situation. And if they're not aware of what they're getting into, and things don't work out, or the expectations, because Islam is perfect, but Muslims are not. We're human, we're people, and we all have our faults and our mistakes. We may have good intentions, but yet we mess up and we make mistakes. So I would really say strengthening your relationship with yourself and Allah before getting into another relationship, and pay attention to what your parents are saying, because they have more vested interest in you as a human being and a person than this man that you have become attracted to. And for some reason, you have these beliefs about him that he's a great partner for you.
I asked him how was it for her when she came into their marriage, because he had a wife before and she came in their marriage as a second wife. He said that she behaved the same way. She'd like lash out and stuff when he's talking to his first wife, because his first wife went to America to do some stuff because she's originally from America. And anytime he calls her, it's a problem. She lashes out, even though she knew that she would be a second wife. So I guess when they got divorced, she said, it's an opportunity for her to be the only one. And then out of nowhere, 1 year later, I'm here.
Assalamu alaikum, sister. I just want to, I want to be careful, because I don't want to infringe on your rights as a person and your own autonomy to decide for yourself what you want to do with your life. But sister, I'm coming from a very big place of love, and I just want to maybe have you reconsider that this brother has a history of hurting women, instead of looking at his wife and thinking, well, she's so upset and she wasn't so upset when she became the second wife. I think it's important to remember that this brother has hurt the first woman that he was with, now the second woman that he's with, and now you're the third woman that he wants to involve in his life. And I really concur with the other sister about paying more attention to what your father and your mother have to say, because they really do love you. And if they don't want you to marry someone, it's not because they want you to be unhappy. Their reason for it, from what I'm hearing, is that you would be a second wife, and they just know through the wisdom of experience what kind of troubles that could cause you and heartaches that could cause you in the future.
But is this just sort of telling of maybe their contract when they first got married? Because If
Yeah, absolutely.
did he hurt these
So
other wives simply because they just weren't ready for, you know, because it seems like she loves him and she doesn't feel that there's ill will there. He's doing something halal, so
mhm,
I'm just
mhm.
wondering how I don't want to say that he's hurting his other wives if that's not
I,
necessarily.
I'm I'm very comfortable saying that he's hurting his wives because I don't want to make her totally responsible for the way that she feels. And I think it's important more than to just notice, more than just focusing on what is halal and what is haram, to really extend empathy to people. And um, you know, she has reasons why she's upset. She's not upset out of the blue. Does it have to do with her self security and her own, like, you know, sense of self? Absolutely. And is that her responsibility in the end of the day? Absolutely. But is he doing something that is deliberately knowing that it's going to be affecting her in some type of way? Yeah, he is. And that's something to pay attention to, because what you do anywhere, you do everywhere. And so if he is so willing to do something that would hurt his wife, possibly the mother of his children, and in the sense that he will marry a second wife or a third wife, he might do a lot of other things deliberately, knowing that it will hurt his wife. And I just want the sister Angelica to remember that. But in terms of halal and haram, I want to say this. I'm not a scholar of Islam, but I do know that the scholars of Islam unanimously, the majority of the scholars of Islam do stress a lot when you go into researching it. The scholars of Islam really stress that it is best to marry only one woman. The verse in the Quran that speaks on polygamous marriage is very contextual. And I think it's very important for us to not forget the context of the Quran, because that verse was referring to taking a patriarchal society that had just finished a war. I think it was a battle of Uhud that the Prophet had just finished, and it left a lot of Muslim families without their fathers. And so the Quran says, if you are wary about taking care of the orphans, then it is made, then marry one, two, three, or marry two, three, or four women. However, if you won't be able to be just between the women, then marry only one. And I think it's very important to note that, because a lot of times we say, I hear Muslims say, well, Allah made it halal, two, three, or four. But Allah also said, marry only one. And it's very important to notice the context that polygamous marriage was not made halal for the lust of men and for the romance of men. It was made halal to take care of orphans and within a patriarchal society. And within that context, still Allah says, if you're not able to be fair, marry only one. And yet another verse, Allah says, you will never be able to be just among women, even if it was your biggest desire. And I think it's very important to notice that.
I just want to make note that I'd be his fifth marriage.
You would be his fifth marriage. Okay. And see, we
Yeah.
also have to note too that he is, it sounds that he is trying to make it equal by giving her a separate home. I don't know if that's even more beneficial. Sister Rayesa, do you actively advise, because of what, you know, Mehdi said, quoting the Quran? Do you ever just advise against it, or do you try to work with the situations?
I mean, I don't think it's up for anyone to tell anyone what to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the intellect and, you know, the knowledge and information out there. It's on us to make our own, you know, autonomous, conscious decisions, because we have to own it and account for it on the day of judgment. So it's not about telling somebody what to do. It's about maybe guiding them or counseling them to look at different perspectives, to gain clarity and conviction within themselves that they stand behind whatever decision that they're making, because they're going with a clear heart and a clear mind. Two things I wanted to point out is, one is believe people when they show you who they are. We're seeing patterns, talking about, you know, 5 marriages. It's just, we're seeing patterns here. So be aware and conscious of this, number one. And when I heard you a couple of times say, Kalima, that, you know, she loves him. Well, we throw this word love around. You know, this is not love. Love is through thick and thin. Love is through good times and bad times, that you're going to stay and you're going to stick around. You're not going to run away. and we don't know about love yet. They are not even married. They haven't been through experiences yet. They don't even have a contract binding them together yet. He's still a non-mahram to her. He has no obligations towards her. It's all talk at this point, right? So this is more of attachment we're talking about. We're talking about an emotional attachment, and we don't want to make emotional decisions for big life-altering situations like this. My advice, especially for Sister Angelica, because I've worked and dealt and support so many new Muslim sisters who've been hurt in exact situations like this because their Islam got intertwined and twisted with what their husband said or did, and that's not how it works. It's very easy to be swept away and believing that, okay, now I'm Muslim and now I'm going to go into a Muslim marriage. I think first and foremost is to create a Muslim identity with the right support. You know, seeking out support groups, whether it's online or in person, and I can, you know, on the side, refer some people to you because I do know people who live in Jamaica and I do know like other Muslims there. So I can connect you with people who would help you find yourself and step into a relationship. Okay, I know what to expect when I go in from here because we're talking about multiple people and feelings, and I can even advise you and guide you to who to look for advice on this particular topic. But I think you got to start from the basics first. Get to know who you are as a servant of God. You know, get to know who God is through this deen that you've chosen to accept. Then when you're on solid grounding, you can make these decisions clearly and confidently.
I think what you said was great because I was thinking the same thing. You know, I wanted to have a Muslim identity first, like find myself living single as a Muslim woman first before I go into this. I told him that, but he said that society is messed up because he thinks that if didn't become Muslim and we're just normal people, not religious, and he came to me and said, oh, I wanted to date him, I'd be more accepting to dating him and going to other stuff than for me to just marry him as a Muslim. So he's saying that's kind of weird in his perspective as a Muslim person. And I honestly feel like his family hates me.
I would say, Sister Angelica, trust yourself, trust your intuition, and make lots of dua. Ask Allah to guide you. That's the number one thing you need. Ask Allah to guide you, to show you, to direct you. There's a prayer called Istikhara prayer, which is the guidance prayer. Look it up online. If you need it, I can send it to you. And we're pretty much asking Allah to direct us what is best for us and take away what is not good for us. If you're having an intuition, trust it.